See, this is where everything shifts in Gideon's story. God hasn't fixed the circumstances. He hasn't answered all the prayers. The Midianites are still coming. The fear hasn't left, and yet Gideon builds an altar. Why? Because peace doesn't require resolution. It requires presence.
If you would like weekly content that builds your faith and helps you walk out all that God has for your life, subscribe and be a part of LifeFamily.
Welcome to the Southwest Campus. We are one church with 7 locations, and I want to welcome all of our campuses that are joining with us today, all across Central Texas. It's so good to be with you today. Today, I have the privilege and honor of opening our series on praying the names of God, and I felt like God gave me a message title about a month ago, and God's just amazing in the way that He works. And Pastor Randy said, I want you to open up our series, and I want you to talk about any name of God that is special to you. And I chose Jehovah Shalom, and little did I know that we would be walking into a room today where all of us would need a little peace. And so I want to share with you, I did have a little bit different of a message planned whenever this week started. I had the title, I had the topic, I had everything, but today I don't want to preach like everything's fine, because it's not. You know, just an hour from here, families are waking up to empty beds. Entire communities are displaced by floodwaters, and some parents are still waiting for news that may never come. Camp Mystic has become a place of grief. The hill country, as we know it and love it, our backyard, has become a place of mourning. And many of you, you're not just watching this from a distance. This is our community. You might know campers. I received a text from a church member just yesterday that said one of the girls attended his kid's school. I'm personally connected to 2 families in the Dallas area that are still waiting for news about 2 of their girls. See, some of you have prayed for those girls, and you're still praying, and you don't have words for what you're feeling on the inside. So I want to start today, and I want to say something that needs to be said up front. I want to acknowledge this pain because God acknowledges our pain, and God is not indifferent to our pain. God is not indifferent to your pain. We serve a God that doesn't just hover above our tragedies and our confusion and these situations that happen. But if we're honest, sometimes it feels like that. And maybe today you're wondering, where is God? Philip Yancey, one of my favorite authors, he said this. He said, faith means believing in advance what will only make sense in reverse. And when peace feels impossible, when resolution is nowhere in sight, we lean on a name that doesn't demand understanding. We have to pray the name, Jehovah Shalom, the Lord is peace. See, it's not peace as in answers. It's not peace as in everything will be calm. It's peace as in presence. Peace is the presence of God. God is peace. Now, peace? What an oxymoron, right? In our culture, in our world today, with politics, with more divided families than ever before, with wars and rumors of war, peace almost seems impossible. In fact, I was digging into some statistics this week and regarding a lack of peace, and this is what I found. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting over 40 million adults. 40 million people that lack peace. Teens are reporting a persistent feeling of sadness or hopelessness, and it rose from 28% in 2011 to 42% in 2021, the highest level ever recorded. Teens lack peace. So nearly 1 in 3 adults, 31%, report struggling with frequent anxiety, worry, or fear in a given month. 1 in 3 adults lack peace. I also read that fear activates 1,400 chemicals and 30 different hormonal responses in our bodies. See, fear and anxiety can be crippling, whether it's the hill country, floods, or other situations that have you needing peace today. Only God can fill that gap. And today I want you to see through this message that God not only can but that he wants to fill that gap. I go to the gym. Maybe it doesn't look like it, I don't know, but I go to the gym often, which is a slight miracle with the age of my kids, but we still go. And I wear different headphones depending on the kind of mood that I'm in, to be honest. And so I have these headphones, and these headphones, if I put them on, they actually don't go on my ears. So if I'm doing cardio or I'm doing the stair stepper or running, I like to wear these because they don't jiggle around in my ears and they're a little bit uncomfortable. So I was on the stair stepper the other day and I was wearing these headphones. And it's not enough to block out all of the noise. It's just enough to hear the music and to keep me focused on what's actually happening. And as I had these on, this guy that was next to me, or he was on the line in front of me, he was talking with a 15 out of a 10 level voice, right? We've all been there. And I was just thinking, dear God, help me. I hope that I never lack that much self-awareness. I could hear every single word of his conversation, right? But I was using these regular headphones. I wanted them to drown out the noise just enough to stay focused. I also like to know what's going on around me. You know, I've had these headphones on at different times, which are complete noise-canceling headphones. So if you have a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old like me, these come in really handy. And so I use these sometimes, and these drown out all noise. The sound disappears. And it had no longer, the sound outside of it no longer has access to you. You can hear your own breath. You become aware of what's going on the inside of you, not just what's around. That's how peace works. See, most of us are walking around and we're living with these regular kinds of headphones. We're living with these that you can still hear everything on the outside. We dip into the presence of God just enough to where we can still, but we're not in long enough to where it blocks out all of the noise that's around us. Since I believe what God's asking us today, whenever it comes to Jehovah Shalom, God is asking us to really put these on and to hear and to block out everything else. And he's saying, what am I saying to you? What am I communicating to you? But see, we've got to dig into the presence of God, and we've got to meet Jehovah Shalom where he is. We've got to meet Jehovah Shalom where he is and where he's trying to find us in order to really block out all the noise. See, that's how peace works. We can't live with the regular headphones. We have to live with the noise-canceling headphones. Henry Nouwen once wrote this. See, the real question is not why something bad happens, but to whom do I belong when it does? And I want to show you this Bible story. It's of Gideon in the Bible, and maybe you've heard of it. It's in Judges chapter 6. And you might know Gideon as the man who took out 135,000 trained soldiers with 300 men. See, Gideon had rounded up 32,000 men, and what does God do? God said, I want you to get rid of 20, I want you to get rid of all of them except for 300. I only want you to have 300 men. Let that sink in. He had 300 men fighting 135,000 trained soldiers, and Gideon didn't even get a sword. He got a torch, a jar, a trumpet, and he wins the battle. But I want to go back in this story to before Gideon ever started the battle. So today we will be in Judges chapter 6. And it says this in verse 11. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The first thing I want you to know today is that God shows up where we hide. See, Israel is being crushed by the Midianites. They've lost everything. They've lost safety, food, freedom, hope. Every time that they plant something, the enemy comes and he steals it. And in verse 11, this is where we find Gideon. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak tree. Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. See, wheat is supposed to be threshed on a hilltop, in open air where the wind can separate the grain from the chaff. But Gideon is in a winepress, a hollowed out pit. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's hiding. He's not praying. He's not leading. He's in fear. He's surviving. And that's where God shows up. Not in power, not in a loud voice, not with dramatic signs, but God sits under the oak tree and he waits. See, this image gets me. This image, it startled me this week. Because sometimes what we don't need is we don't need a God that just storms in. But we need a God who sits with us while we tremble. Philip Yancey writes this: the Bible never belittles human disappointment, but it does add one key word: hope. And I want some of you to know that today, and I'm going to repeat that line. The Bible never belittles human disappointment, but it does add one key word: hope. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel confused. But the Bible, and through Jehovah Shalom, and through the presence of God, we can have hope. And hope begins not with solutions, but hope begins with presence. Now, in this story, I think this is pretty cool. This is something that I learned this week. I want to recognize that when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, we recognize this as theophany. And in the Old Testament, that means it's an Old Testament appearance of Jesus Christ in human bodily form, but before his incarnation in Bethlehem. We also know this because in Judges 6:14 it says, "Then the Lord turned to him and said," and then in Judges 6:16 it says, "And the Lord said to him." See, the Lord is with Gideon. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Gideon isn't leading a revival. He's hiding. And the Lord comes to him where he is. The Midianites have been destroying Israel's crops and economy for years. And Gideon is just trying to make sure his family eats. He's not brave. He's not bold. He's surviving. And that's where God shows up. Not in a temple, not in a prayer meeting, but in a wine press, in fear, in the dark. See, and some of you walked in here today just like that. You're in fear. You're grieving. You're in hiding. And you're saying, where is God? And today, I need you to know that he's right there with you. Jehovah Shalom shows up in places like that. Continuing on in verse 13. "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, then why has all of this happened to us? Where are all of his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us to the hand of Midian." You might be feeling like that today. Where is God? In verse 14, "The Lord turned to him and said, 'Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?' Verse 15, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the weakest in my family." And maybe that's you today too. Maybe you have all of the reasons why God cannot use you. And this is the second thing I need you to know today, is that God calls you according to his presence, not your past story or present reality. See, Gideon responds, "But Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." He lays out his resume of disqualifications. Maybe you've been laying out yours too. God, I'm not qualified. God, I failed too much. God, I'm anxious. God, I'm too broken. God, I have too much sin. God, I'm not a good parent. God, I'm not a good spouse. God, I don't know how to do what you're asking me to do. And how does God respond to Gideon when Gideon comes to him like that? He says, "Am I not sending you? I will be with you." The question is, are we with him? You see, God never calls people that are already enough. He calls the surrendered, not the impressive. He calls the available, not the qualified. So in verse 12, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Guys, by all means, this is absurd. Gideon's in hiding. He's the youngest in the weakest tribe, and he has no strategy, no power, no army. And God is saying, I'm with you, go forward. And God calls him by a name that he hasn't lived into yet. Mighty warrior. And Gideon does what you and I do. But sir, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, then why has all of this happened? If the Lord is here, if the Lord is sovereign, if the Lord is good, then why has all of this happened? Why the suffering? Why the silence? Why did the floods come? Why are children missing? And listen, God doesn't rebuke Gideon for asking. God doesn't say, how dare you question me? He says, no, go in the strength that you have. Get up and go in the strength that you have. I am still sending you. I am sending you. C.S. Lewis said it like this. He said, pain insists on being attended to. God whispers in our pleasures. He speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. Gideon hears God in the winepress, not in the temple. Not when he's doing all the right things. And some of you will hear God most clearly when you're not at your strongest, when you're asking the most questions, when you're being the most honest with wondering where God is. At your lowest, the question is simple. Are we giving God space to speak to us in the middle of our brokenness? Are we allowing his peace to fill the gap? God called Moses, who stuttered. He said, why are you sending me? He said, I'll be with you. God calls David, who was forgotten. God calls Mary, who's young and unknown. God calls Peter, who was a fool. And he denied Jesus 3 times, and he still called him to go and build the church. He calls a Gideon, who was hiding, not because of what they bring, but because of who he is. And because they were able to meet God in the middle of their brokenness, and Gideon in the winepress in his hiding. I brought my daughter's backpack today. Like many of you, if you have young kids like me, this weekend was troubling on a number of different levels. It just hits different when you're looking at pictures of little girls that look just like yours. The same age, same size, same birthdays. Like it's crazy, and I was looking at my kids yesterday. They were swimming. And I was just watching my daughters, fighting back some emotions, and I just kept looking at my daughter, and I was, just do this, we do this back and forth, and I was just thinking, you have no idea how much it would wreck me if I lost you. And so I brought this today to be a little symbol of what we're all walking through. If you have any kids like me, or you're mourning this, but on the inside, I brought something that I think is deeply profound to you and I today. And it's we carry around these bags often because this bag is beautiful. It's got rainbows on it. It's super cute, right? You might be concerned about me if I was walking around with this. But so I had to clarify that it's my daughter's backpack. See, it's got her name on it, I promise. But on the inside of it are different things that we all carry, right? And so I'm just going to pull these out one by one, and this one, man, this one says anger. This one, fear. Shame. And sin. Some of this came from our parents, our culture, our upbringing, our trauma. Some of us picked it up on our own through our own doing. And now we've carried it into our marriage and into our parenting, into our friendships, and into our calling even. And what's worse is we wrap it up in something that's pretty and we pass it along and we go, oh, life's tough, life's hard. But we're still carrying it everywhere that we go. See, it's in moments like this that some of these things start to creep up to the top, and we start to really face who we really are on the inside, and that's where God wants to meet us. And see, this is what Gideon is facing. Gideon is in the winepress because he realizes that this is all that he has in his bag. He has the shame of being the littlest. He has the fear of being the youngest. He has all of these things that he's holding on to him, and he's hiding away in a winepress, and God comes and he meets him there. And that's when the Lord says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Is whenever Gideon is honest about all of this, and he says, "These are all of the reasons why I'm holding back myself from your presence." God says, "I will meet you right in the middle of that. I am with you, you mighty warrior." He doesn't say, "I'm with you, you shameful warrior." He doesn't say, "I'm with you, you embarrassing warrior." He says, "I am with you, mighty warrior." Gideon's saying, "What about my shame?" God's saying, "It doesn't matter." "What about my sin?" "I've covered it." "What about my anger?" "I'll take care of it." But the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. In verse 16, the Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites." See, God's assurance to Gideon was not built upon self-confidence. He was not trying to boost up who Gideon was. He was saying, "I will be enough for you." See, some of us have carried these things around for so long that we're trying to prove that we don't have them anymore, when God's just asking us to lay it down and meet him in his presence. The Lord is with you. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to find his presence. In verse 17, Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." Gideon went outside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephah of flour, he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on his rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." Verse 24, so Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." The third thing I want you to know today is that God gives peace before the battle, not just after it. See, this is where everything shifts in Gideon's story. God hasn't fixed the circumstances. He hasn't answered all the prayers. The Midianites are still coming. The fear hasn't left, and yet Gideon builds an altar. Why? Because peace doesn't require resolution. It requires presence. Peace does not require resolution. It requires presence. See, peace came before the fight. Peace came before the victory. Peace came before the odds got better. See, it's not the altar of the healed. It's the altar of the honest, where God meets us. It's Gideon saying, "I don't know what happens next, but I've met the God who will go with me into it." And some of us need to stop waiting for the breakthrough before we build the altar. If you're anything like me, you've been refreshing your news. I hope they find more of the girls. I hope some of this changes. But we need to be faster to get on our hands and our knees and be at the altar before the breakthrough comes. So God, I don't know how this is going to turn out. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. I don't like the way that this makes me feel. But I trust that you are going to be God in the middle of it. See, the miracle wasn't even the battle won. That's what's so crazy about this story. Is it amazing that Gideon beat 135,000 warriors with 300 men? Absolutely, it's insane. But the miracle wasn't the battle won. The miracle was the peace that showed up before the war even began. I want to show you this picture of a white flag on the screen. And usually, you know what this means is this means defeat, surrender, loss. But in the kingdom of God, This is where peace begins, with surrender. See, Gideon finally realizes he's not speaking with an ordinary messenger. He's standing in the presence of God himself. And that's when he builds an altar. Not after the battle, not after the victory, but right there in the fear and the unknown. It's a declaration of his faith to say, God, I have fear, but I'm building this altar in faith because I know you're greater than anything I'm about to walk into. And he names the altar Jehovah Shalom, the Lord is peace. Not because he felt peace, but because peace came to him anyways. It's just like the noise-canceling headphones that you all know this. If I put those on, it doesn't change the reality of anything around me. It just changes whose voice I'm listening to. The world can be going on in chaos, and it will. Maybe before you've received a phone call, like some of those parents received this week. But a phone call can change everything in a moment. And the question is your altar built to withstand it? Are we ready? Are we in his presence? Because we don't have what it takes on our own. This is what it means to pray the name, Jehovah Shalom. It's the name you whisper when you don't have the strength to shout. It's the altar you build when nothing makes sense yet. I was having dinner about 6 months ago with a friend who's an agnostic, and I had just met him, and I knew the dreaded question was coming. What do you do for work? I'm a pastor. I usually, I work at a church. Oh, what do you do? I have to say I'm a pastor. Not embarrassed of it. I just didn't, I was bracing for the walls to go up, but it didn't. The conversation slowed, it shifted, and something holy opened up. He said, I grew up in churches and communities that never made space for questions, especially the ones I really needed to ask. About suffering, about pain, about why God seems silent when it hurts. And we entertained a conversation for about an hour. It was a long conversation. And a few weeks ago, he invited me into his home. And something came up, and he just out of nowhere, it's taken me a long way to get here, so I'm not patting myself on the back for this, please hear me, but he said, I feel safe asking questions around you. You don't rush to explain. You make room for the ache. And I had realized something as he began to voice it out, that he had come to expect Christians to be grounded in answers and everything to be black and white and everything to make sense. But he met a pastor grounded in something else. So I want to say it plain to you today. I don't have all the answers. Life isn't black and white. There are some things in Scripture that are absolute, and there are some things where we have to ask God, where are you when this happens? See, I don't know how to be a good husband. I don't know how to be a good father. I don't come from a long lineage of men that showed me the way. Like, I'm learning it all first generation. I'm not grounded in answers. I'm not grounded as a dad. I'm not grounded as an employee. I'm not grounded as a pastor. But I can tell you this. I've learned what to be grounded in, and it's in the presence of God. Because when I don't know what to do, he fills the gap. When I don't know how to parent my kids, I go to God and he helps me. When I don't know how to be a good husband, I go to God and he helps me. When I don't know how to be a good pastor, I go to God and he helps me. I don't have the answers. Whenever we have a crisis in our community, it's not black and white. We have to go to God and we have to get on our hands and our knees and we have to say, God, we are not enough, but we're trusting that you are going to fill the gap through your sovereignty. That is the secret to life. He alone fills the gap. And that's where we find peace. This doesn't mean that we have peace because everything's been resolved. It means that I have peace because I've stopped pretending that I'm supposed to resolve everything. Isaiah 40, popular verse that says this. It says, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and they will not faint. What's my job? Wait. What's his job? Renew. What does this mean? It means that it's his presence that renews, not answer prayers. It's in the middle of my grief, in the middle of my confusion, in the middle of my broken heart. What do? I go to his presence and to his altar, and I position myself in it, and I wait. And I trust that he will renew me, and his word says that he will. So if today you say, well, I don't know if that's how it works. Well, have you tried it? When's the last time you waited on the Lord? When's the last time you really intentionally sat in the presence of God and built your altar? And I'm not talking about with wood and nails. I'm just saying to get on your hands and your knees and to show God that you have more faith in his ability to be God than your own ability to work through whatever you're going through. When's the last time that you really laid these rocks down? When's the last time? Another verse that we quote often is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's like a victory chant that we use it. I used to sing songs about it as a kid. But that wasn't written on a battlefield after a victory. It was written in prison. It was at Paul's lowest. Paul wasn't flexing his muscles. He was facing the unknown. And he was saying, if I never get out of here, his presence is enough. Friends, I want you to hear me today that until we have a generation of men and women who are more confident in God's ability to move in our weakness than we are in our own ability to hide it, we will never find the freedom that God has for us. We will never find the peace that God has for us. We have to trust his ability to move in our weakness, especially in moments like this. 2 Corinthians 4 says this, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are struck down, but we are not destroyed. Why? Not because we're jars of clay, but because of the treasure that is within us. Is it within you today? Have you spent enough time in his presence and at his altar to have the treasure within you today? So maybe your prayer today sounds something like this. God, I don't know how to parent. The Lord is with you, mighty parent. I don't know how to be a good spouse. The Lord is with you, mighty spouse. God, I don't know how to walk through this grief. The Lord is with you. Not because you're strong, but because he is peace. And in our honesty, he can fill the gap. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I'm going to send this back to our campus pastors, and I want you to invite your people to pray. Invite them into a moment to pray to Jehovah Shalom. Some of you here at our campus, you came in today wearing a brave face but carrying a buried war. You're not looking for a sermon. You know, in many ways, the sermon didn't even feel right today. You're not looking for noise. You're not even necessarily looking for answers anymore. Some of you are just hoping someone will say that it's okay to fall apart in the presence of a God who won't. And here's the gospel. See, peace doesn't wait for the storm to end. It walks straight into the winepress. It walks straight into our hiding. It walks straight into our grief. It walks straight into our cave, into the news update that you're still trying to process, and the news update that you're fearing is going to come, and the inability to reconcile a relationship, and your marriage that feels like it's falling apart. Wherever you are today, the gospel is that Jesus Christ walks right into our darkest moments. See, peace is not the reward for survival. Peace is the presence that keeps us alive in the middle of it. The Lord said this, "Peace, do not be afraid," the Lord said to Gideon. Not after the battle, not after the healing, not after the flood recedes or the grief makes sense, right there, right then, before the war began. So today, the invitation is quite simple. Build an altar. Not because everything's fixed, but because He alone can give us peace. We have to lay down our backpack. We have to be honest about our bricks. We have to cancel the noise that we've been listening to on the outside, and we actually have to raise a white flag and give God enough time to fill our jar of clay with His treasure. See, Jehovah Shalom is not waiting at the finish line. He's not waiting for you to figure it all out. He's with you. He's with us right now in this moment. He's walking beside us and beside you in whatever your moment might look like. See, today might not be the day that your fear vanishes, but it can be the day that we stop running from it, and we can meet the God that calls us mighty warrior, even when we're just trying to make it to tomorrow. The attempt isn't to be fixed. The attempt is to be found in His presence.
Thank you so much for being a part of our service today. And we hope and pray that this message touched your heart. And we want to hear from you. We want to get to know you. There are several links below this video that you can connect and let us know what's going on in your life. So we would love to invite you to do that. But most importantly, if you made a decision to follow Jesus today, that is amazing, and we want to celebrate you. I invite you to text Next Steps to 22999. We'll respond with a text and give you some resources and next steps for your faith journey. So we just celebrate you and want to invite you to do that. Thank you so much for making this decision to follow Jesus. It's amazing. So thank you again for being a part of our service today. We will see you next time.